Hello everybody, welcome to the Comic Game Movie Show. My name is Deshaun, and today I am here to review Antman and the Wasp Quantumania. Now this movie is the second, currently right now, this is the second worst reviewed MCU movie of all time. Right now, Phase 5, since Avengers Endgame, Marvel has now produced 2 rotten films. And while Eternals you could sort of kind of cast aside because it's such a new concept. It's a new concept, it's a very different movie. There are no characters. I mean, the most recognizable actor in that movie was probably Angelina Jolie, and she's not the main part of that movie. So, and it's a very lengthy movie, so you can kind of not root Eternals off, but you can kind of talk Eternals off as, well, it's a new concept, but to see a sequel come out and get a rotten score, I mean, Thor: Love and Thunder was also knocking on the rotten score, so don't get me wrong, this ain't the first time this happened. Thor: Love and Thunder was also knocking on the scores. In fact, this is definitely, from a Rotten Tomatoes standpoint, from a review standpoint, been one of the weakest. It's been very weak, but to me, I've still enjoyed most of these movies. There hasn't really been a movie yet that I genuinely thought was terrible. There have been movies I thought were okay, or maybe that could have been better than what it was. Obviously, your Thor: Love and Thunder, your Thor: Dark Worlds, your Iron Man 2s, Captain Marvels, things of that nature. I have been Avengers: Age of Ultron. I've been while I enjoyed that could have been better. And then there are movies that I just straight up disagree. While Thor: Love and Thunder, I love Thor: Love and Thunder. Now a lot of people disagree with that. A lot of people thought it was bad, thought it was trash. I love Thor: Love and Thunder, so I disagree with that. I very much enjoyed Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, but both of those movies had issues, and it's turning out it wasn't until I watched this film that I finally see an issue that the MCU has had. Ever since it started, well, not ever since, mainly since the film started coming out. Because the shows were kind of doing their thing. The shows were kind of doing the traditional MCU thing of being these isolated things that set up the future, but for the most part, they're isolated things. These movies, you don't have to know anything to see the individual projects. Whereas, lately with the films, and it happened in this one majorly. This one was the biggest one of biggest error in this film. Which, by the way, I still rather enjoyed the film. I still had a good time with it. I ended up giving if I had to give this film a score right up top, I'd give it a 7 out of 10. Not the highest thing, not the weakest thing. It's my least favorite of the Ant-Man movies. But even still, the characters themselves, just to get the positives out of the way, Scott Lang, all the characters themselves are so good in their roles, that, there's comedy, there's joy out of just seeing them together. There's a couple of really funny jokes in there. It was great to see him, the chemistry between Cassie and Scott, the actors, is really well done, because that was one of the things I was worried about. Okay, we've seen Scott with that other actress who played his little daughter. How is him and this new actress playing Cassie how are they gonna mesh? And they really do come off like father and daughter. She really does. The actresses, I can't remember her name, she does a very good job of feeling like a grown-up version of Cassie, where her headspace is, her personality. It really does. It seems like she was raised by Scott. She's Scott Lang's daughter. She's in every woman. She really is Scott's daughter, and you can really see it in her. She's like a combination of him and she's like a combination of Scott and God damn it, why about Janet and Hope? Cause she's got Hope's brains and Scott's heart, so to speak, and so I enjoyed her. I wish we would have got more. And also, Michelle Pfeiffer finally got to really dig her teeth into Janet Van Dyne, and it was great to see more out of her, see more layers out of her, see more about her stories. Great to answer those questions. Michael Douglas seems like he was having a blast in this movie. I think he probably looked like he was having more fun in this one than he did in any of the other ones, because he just looked like he was having a good old time. I did not hate MODOK. I wasn't in love with MODOK. I didn't hate it though. And the funny thing is, it was off-putting at first, but then the more I looked at his face, the more I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not quite sure how else you would do MODOK. Because I thought they were doing the whole Spy Kids thing. They really didn't, actually. He was more CG. He was like a CGI face. He was a CGI face. And I was like, I don't know how else you do MODOK, dude. Like, honest to God, I'm not sure how you do MODOK without it being ridiculous. Which is why I was probably a little bit more forgiving on the MODOK stuff, because I was like, I'm not sure how you do MODOK without it being ridiculous anyways. MODOK is a ridiculous character. There's no way around him being ridiculous and stupid. So, I can't fault the movie for being ridiculous, for you depicting him ridiculous and stupid when he's a ridiculous and stupid character. So, I kind of let the MODOK thing, I was like, whatever. I did like some of the jokes about himself. And obviously, the best thing by far in the movie was Jonathan Majors' depiction of Kang. And it's funny because this version of Kang is kind of the one that we all imagine that Kang is, the more serious, the stoic, the conqueror, like this cold, calm, calculating demeanor. Like, he's, like I said, he's very cold, he's very calculating. In many ways, he does have a little bit of a parallel to Thanos in terms of his demeanor, in terms of how he talks, how he moves, the look in his eyes. Jonathan Majors did an amazing job in this movie, and he was by far the best part of this movie. Him alone kept, like without him, the movie might have been like a 6. Him alone earned it a 7 as Jonathan Majors. He was great. Fantastic. I can't wait to see more of him, because we will be seeing a lot more of him. But the problem with this film is time. Ironically, the movie's about someone who uses time, but the problem with this movie is time, because they introduce so many concepts, so many good, interesting concepts that could be, not concepts, story beats, and a concept that needed more time to marinate and actually develop. The quantum realm alone needed more time to marinate and develop, because they're throwing this entire idea out there of this whole world, of this whole universe down here. And they're throwing so many ideas at you. I don't want to spoil anything, but they're throwing so many concepts, so many ideas at you, which I saw some people comparing it to Star Wars. And it is a little Star Wars-y. When it gets down there in the quantum realm, it is very Star Wars-y. But it's too much, in my opinion. They did too much in this. They tried to do too much in this movie in the short amount of time. This movie's about like an hour and 58 minutes, hour and 57 minutes, something like that. It's less than 2 hours. This is a less than 2 hours movie, and they tried to cram in so many story beats. They put in the whole thing about Cassie being a little bit more rebellious and wanting to live up to her father, but being disappointed in her own father, because then they throw this idea that Scott's been living on his morals, living on all the things he's accomplished, and he's been writing books and shit and going to premieres, and he hasn't really been out there being a hero, standing up for the little man, doing what was right. He's kind of been lazy. He's kind of been complacent. And obviously, they even set up this idea that Janet has retaken over Pimtech, and she's like doing all these things with Pimtech and whatnot, and like the company, and she's doing all these things. And the problem is none of those ideas, the human stuff, because that's what Marvel is the best at, is giving you the human stuff, making you care about that, so no matter what ridiculous CGI-filled adventure you go on, you care about the characters and about what they're going through, so you go on the journey with them. Problem is, they didn't develop any of those story beats that were supposed to be the heart of the movie to the point where everyone would be on board. Now I was still into it, just because I know how much Scott cares about Cassie. I know where his headspace is. I know where all these characters' headspaces are. And I enjoy all these characters. So I was able to go on that ride and still have a good time. But even me having a good time realized this should have been better. Every single concept they had in this movie needed more time to develop. Or it didn't need to be there. Honestly, as much as I love Kang in the movie, he kind of hurt the film. Because while it makes sense for Ant-Man to be the movie that explores the quantum realm, making Kang the main villain, making the entire plot of Janet and everything around the Kang of it all, sort of shifted and changed what the Ant-Man movies are. The Ant-Man movies are smaller, little isolated movies that have tie-ins to the bigger events. But they made this Ant-Man movie more like an episode of the bigger event. Because the problem the MCU has been running into for the beginning of this phase and last phase, in terms of the films, anyways, is that they're so focused. It's like, I don't know if Feige heard the noise, because I've talked many times before about that 2-year span in time where everything was shut. That 1 year, like no 2 years, because they didn't do anything for a year, and then COVID happened, so they couldn't do nothing for another year. But that 2-year stretch of time where nothing was happening, where Marvel was not pumping out any films at all, and people were adamant and people were angry, and everyone assumed, like me, that they were going to slowly do the same thing. They would just build up to it, and they were sort of doing that with Shang-Chi and whatnot, but it feels to me like Marvel is rushing to the event. Like, they want to get as much information across on what's going to happen in the future right now. And in the past, it used to be slower. It used to be every film was this independent small film, was this independent isolated film that then had a connection, but it didn't overtake the whole film. The Kang of it all kind of overtook this entire film and turned it into something that wasn't really like an Ant-Man movie. It was like they were trying to tell a mini Avenger story while sprinkling in Ant-Man. It was weird. And I feel like if they had not made it about Kang, if they had made it like, maybe they didn't even need a villain. They could have just made it a Lost in Space type of story where they had to find their way out and everyone had to reconnect and you learn more about the characters. They didn't have to have a central villain. Or they could have had a smaller villain that wasn't the main focus of the film. But having Kang in this movie kind of took away the Ant-Man of it all, in my opinion. And if you had took Kang out of the movie and you had just focused on these characters and their connections to each other and their stories to each other, I think you probably would have came away with a better film. But still, I enjoyed the movie. I had a good time with the movie. I thought there's a lot to like about the movie. The CGI was pretty good too, as well. There was some very funny jokes. I like the chemistry between Cassie and Scott. I think that was great. Jonathan Majors was amazing, top tier villain right there. And like I said, I mean, not even the action was that bad. But like I said, they just try to do too much in this tiny movie, dude. Like, the Ant-Man movies aren't made to do all the things they were trying to do in it. And I think Marvel, either A, they're gonna have to start writing these movies to be a little longer, because that's the problem with the movie, is it's like they were shortcutting everything to put it in this 2-hour box. When this is like this is like 3 hours worth of story. They're shrinking down to 2 hours. Like, in terms of what they were trying to tell, that's like 3 hours worth of story. Like, the first hour of the movie should have been like back, like, and on Earth. That's how long it should have been on Earth, establishing a relationship, establishing the tension, establishing Cassie trying to do shit, establishing Hope being frustrated. Like, they should have established so much, but they had to just go. And so far, that has been the big problem, in my opinion, with all the MCU movies so far that have come out since Endgame, or since Spider-Man No Way Home. Except, there's exceptions to the rule, obviously, but even Shang-Chi had that problem. Wen-Wu should have had more time. We should have got more time with them. And so far, the biggest problem, in my opinion, except for Eternals, is time. Is that Marvel really isn't giving these movies enough time to breathe. And I can't tell why. If you're gonna make it only 2 hours, you have to write it for 2 hours, which means you need to cut things out of the film to focus on the things that matter. But they try to do so much that it ended up hurting other aspects of the movie. And to me, it's disappointing. It is disappointing. Like I said, I still enjoyed myself, but it is disappointing because there's so much more to be done here. I don't think you had to have Kang be the villain in this movie. You could have went a different direction. But anyways, thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. Please like, subscribe, and comment below. What did you think of Ant-Man and Wasp Quantumania? I'm sure a lot of you hated it. I rather enjoyed it. I ended up giving it a 7 out of 10. But even at that 7 out of 10, I was very disappointed because there was so much more potential for something beautiful. But it is what it is. Anyway, thank you guys for joining the Comic Game Movie Show. Please like and subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one. Goodbye.